welcome to the Kolbe Cast, episode 274. Thank you for joining us. Today, Bonnie and I are joined by Dr. Anne Brodeur, Chair of the Liberal Arts and Education Departments at Catholic International University. Speaking of a topic close to our hearts, Anne talks about the importance and value of a liberal arts degree, especially in our world today. She also explains how the Newman Guide's only fully online college functions and how it is filling a unique need for those who want a quality Catholic higher education degree without the need to leave home. We hope that you'll enjoy the show.
Hi there, I'm Bonnie, Kolbe homeschooling mom of 4 lads and lasses, liturgical musician, popcorn, and podcast fanatic.
And this is Stephen, homeschooling father of 5 and director of development for Kolbe Academy.
Good morning, Stephen. How are you?
Doing well, although at this time of year when we're recording in Arkansas, it's not the best time to visit Arkansas right now. It's
No. Okay.
temperature is up in the around 100 right now most days, and people should come in October, November, March is beautiful. Don't just skip Arkansas right now, though.
Yeah, here too. We've hit that part of the summer. It might as well be as cold as it gets where our guest is from. for as hot as it gets here, we'll stay inside. So today is time for a college visit. We're checking out Catholic International University, which operates remotely, much like Kolbe's online academy in some respects. Here to tell us more about Catholic International University and visit about the value of the liberal arts in today's world is Dr. Anne Brodeur, Chair of Education and Liberal Arts for the school. Hi, Dr. Brodeur. Welcome to the Kolbe Cast.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
I've been looking forward to this conversation and want to hear more about you. I'm whenever I give a little bit of biographical information about guests, I leave a whole ton out. So I'd rather you tell us about yourself and your background, and some of which we're going to circle back to later because it has a direct relevance to our Kolbe study. So tell us about you and your background.
Yeah, sure. So I grew up out west. I was born in North Dakota. I was raised in Montana on a ranch. I went through public schools my whole K-12 career. And then when I went to university, that was the first time I was able to encounter Catholic education. And it was just a mind-blowing sort of experience for me. It opened up worlds that I hadn't known existed. And I, thought that I came from a family of readers. My mother was a librarian. And I thought that I came from a family that, really prized education. But Catholic education just opened up avenues of thought, of beauty, of wonder, of truth that I'd never been exposed to before. And so that was quite the amazing experience. I then went to do my master's in medieval studies at Catholic University of America. And then I also then went on to do my doctorate at the University of Toronto in medieval history at the Pontifical Institute for Medieval Studies there. So it's been a long sort of circuitous route, but it's been one where I get to read, I get to talk with people that are interesting and exciting to me, and there's always new avenues opening up.
I've noticed in your bio some of your areas of interest, your scholarly pursuits, and the areas of study and teaching that you have undertaken throughout the course of your career. They are directly relevant to Catholic classical homeschooling and family life.
Mm-hmm.
Talking to the Kolbe families, who are the bulk of our listeners here, having undertaken this form of education, what are your thoughts about where we are today in Catholic classical education,
Mm-hmm.
homeschooling specifically, and kind of that within the context of family life?
Yeah. So one of the areas of interest for me is the intersection of religion and culture, and how culture influences religion and vice versa. And that has a lot to do with education, and it has a lot to do with the family. The family and education are the two vehicles by which culture and faith are transmitted. And so these are the things that I study and I write about, whether I'm writing about them in the medieval world or I'm writing about them in our own current context. These are human questions. And thankfully, humans haven't changed much in 1500 years. so what I learned from the medieval ages, I can bring forward to the present and vice versa, in how we understand the relationship between education, family life, religion, and culture. Classical education, some people prefer to call it liberal arts education or classical liberal arts education. Kind of depends on, where in the country you live and your context. But it's enjoying a revival because there's I think, a deepening sense amongst families that public school education isn't conveying the culture that we want to have conveyed to our children. It's not forming them, it's not shaping them into the kind of persons that can go forth into the world and bring truth, goodness, and beauty into that world. And it tends, public education tends to be very practical, oriented towards, what kind of job you're going to get. It's not particularly interested in what kind of person you're going to become. And this is, I think, the difference for Catholic classical or Catholic liberal arts education. We are really interested in what kind of human beings our children are going to become. Are they going to become the kind of human beings that certainly are a boon to their own society, their own communities, who are going to be the kind of people who can help build up community through their work, through their family life, through their involvement in the various parts of their community. We want to raise children who can be wonderful parents, wonderful mothers and fathers who can embrace the vocation that God gives them, whether that's to family life or to religious life or to celibate life, or to the priestly vocation. They know what a vocation is, and they have the capacities to embrace it. We want, our children to be the kind of people that can do that. Education is absolutely critical to forming those kinds of young people. The more families we have who can do this, that is how culture changes. A lot of people look at the culture and they go, oh, the culture, and they feel powerless against it. But one of the things that I tell my students all the time is you are not powerless against the culture. You, in fact, are a vector of culture, somebody who can change culture, who has the capacity to transform the world you live in, beginning at home, beginning with how you order your own life, how you order your relationships, the kind of person that you're going to become. That is how you change culture. And so classical, liberal arts, Catholic education, these are all oriented towards forming young people into being the kinds of persons who can transform culture for the true, the good, and the beautiful. So that was very long and rambling, but
On point.
A great point. And it serves as a great reminder and encouragement to the parents who are in it or contemplating it. So that's very helpful. The value of the liberal arts education and Catholic classical education, that's kind of a recurring theme here on our Kolbe. It always bears repeating, though, and encouragement and underlining, like what makes it relevant today? What is the value of it?
Yeah.
All those sorts of things that are always useful to hear.
Right, right. I mean, I know a lot of families are worried because, they're raising children that are going to go forth into a world that's going to be dominated by new technologies, AI, which is just the first and most immediate sort of emerging technology that we're aware of. But there are going to be more. We are raising children that are going out into a world that is rapidly changing. And so parents are rightly sort of concerned about, how should I educate my child to greet those challenges that I don't even see coming, but I know that will come. And the temptation is to say, well, then, my kid should go get a STEM degree, or my kid should become a coder, or my kid should do, some very practical, technical thing. And I always tell families that's a mistake. First of all, that technology is going to be gone in 10 years. I mean, look at how much the iPhone has changed since it came out, 20 years ago, how rapidly AI is evolving. It's a mistake to try and train for this moment because it's gone tomorrow. What you want to do is train for eternity. And what you want to do is train or raise or form up young people who have the capacity of mind and the vision to greet the challenges as they come. So, and what do I mean by that? What are those capacities? Well, we want to form them with a vision of reality. And this is what the liberal arts does in spades. The liberal arts are, and classical education, as a sort of another way of talking about the liberal arts. The liberal arts are meant to help you understand each different segments of creation or of reality. They're access points to reality, and they all enable us to study and understand creation with a holistic view. So the idea is that through the liberal arts, I should be able to have some sense of the whole of creation, of reality. And I should, in that process, come to have some sort of understanding of myself in relation to reality and in relation to the creator who made reality, who is reality itself. If I have some sense of the wholeness, the unity of reality, if I have some sense of myself in relationship to that reality and in relationship to God, then I am much in a much better position to greet any challenge that should come my way. There are many studies out there that talk about how students of the liberal arts are more flexible in their thinking, they're more creative, they are able to see more broadly. Technical training helps you to see very narrowly. The liberal arts help you to see broadly. And this is the kind of capacity that we are going to need to see in our young people if they're going to be leading our societies in how to engage or understand or deal with technological change as it comes. So the liberal arts are absolutely essential, more essential, I would say, the more technological we become in our society.
I really love all of that. And as you're speaking, it's just making me think of some recent conversations. So my daughter just graduated from college and just got married. And so I'm
Mm-hmm.
interacting with people of this younger generation right
Yeah.
now. And thinking like when I grew up, we were, in rural Wisconsin, we were kind of like a generation behind a lot of other areas because we were, rural farming. So growing up, people didn't have a lot of options and they're going to likely get into a job and they're going to do it for the rest of their lives until retirement. But my children don't even speak of like careers in that way now. It's like they're looking at, okay, for now, I'm going to do this. And my kids have gone through classical programs and so they're thinking about these are the important things. Like you started out with my vocation. This is how I want to serve the church, the world. This is what I want to do. But for now, it's going to be this. But I anticipate in 10 years, it's going to be something completely different. So,
Right.
so these tools are like you say, it's perfect because they know they can teach themselves. They can
Yeah.
pick up books, they can learn. It's not like, okay, well, I was trained to do this, and now what happens if that job goes away, or if they're confident, but they have that eternal sort of view too, knowing this isn't it. It is, my factory job or my farm job or whatever isn't. That's not that's not me. That's just something I might do, I guess. But
Yeah, there is a temptation to drop into these sort of generation wars that we see kind of cropping up online, and I never really want to go down that line because I the generation that I'm training now in university, so this would be Gen Z. Pretty soon we're going to be C Gen Alpha coming along. They have such a different understanding of the world and an engagement with the world than I do, as I will admit to being Gen X. But it's such a fundamentally different world now for them. And so I really don't want to encourage, older people when they say, "Oh, these young people these days," I don't find that very helpful because, God raises up new generations. He gives them different gifts, different capacities to meet the challenges that are before them. Young people are more flexible in terms of thinking about, what am I going to do when I grow up? Whereas, my parents would have said, you get in a certain lane and you stay in that lane. through to the end till you get, the gold watch and the mantle clock at retirement, that's not going to happen. I mean, it hasn't even happened for me, um, but it's definitely not going to happen for younger generations. And to encourage them to, be courageous, and to be optimistic. The Lord has put them in this place, in this time, with this specific set of gifts to meet this moment. It's not an accident. It's all on purpose. And he has every confidence that with his help, this generation will be able to face whatever challenges comes its way. And the education that we're giving them is just giving them the tools that they need to greet those challenges.
I really appreciate that. And so many of the points you have made are just, you're singing my song here. It's lovely. It's lovely to hear. It sounds beautiful. I find myself reminding me and my children that we can't know what we don't know. So that to be able to have that flexibility to not be so super specialized, knowing that it may not work out that way, and we can't know what we will need to do, what we will find ourselves interested in, what circumstances will come along that need to be addressed, and having this formation will help us engage that well.
Yeah. There's often, I think, young people, in my 20 plus years of working with incoming freshmen, a lot of them say they have to know exactly what their career is going to be. I need to know if I'm going to be a doctor, or I need to know if I'm going to be a therapist, or, an engineer or whatever. And very few people know that when you're 18. And so that the beauty of a liberal arts education is that it helps you to develop your sense of your capacities, of what you are good at, of what gifts the Lord has given you. But also it helps you to understand reality more deeply. What are the challenges in reality that you are particularly created to greet? And then, as you get older, you will obtain the education, obtain the training, whatever it is that's needed to meet these issues that are in the world before you. You don't need to know what your career is going to be. And in fact, that might be the wrong way of approaching it, because the world we live in is changing so fast.
I think for me personally, there's nothing that's benefited me. Well, that's not true. But one of the things that's benefited me most is my liberal arts. I have a liberal arts degree from Thomas Aquinas College, but the that word liberal freeing, I have felt so free throughout my life after that education because I feel blessed because I have the church guiding me. I have a clear path, a compass. I can always go to the church and make sure the direction is right. But beyond that, I can approach any problem and we can say, okay, let's figure this out. Let's study it, think about it. I don't have to have somebody tell me what I'm supposed to think about it or tell me that this is the right way of doing things. I'm free to engage with that, to question, to think for myself. And it's just it's made all of the difference for me, I think, from in my adult life. But
Yeah. I think one of the things that liberal arts education done rightly does so well is it's integrative, right? Faith and reason, faith and science. We're not afraid of anything. Like
yeah,
that's the thing. Somebody coming from a liberal arts background shouldn't be afraid of science, right? We shouldn't be afraid of, I don't know, sociology or math or literature. You shouldn't be afraid of Shakespeare. Like, we can have the confidence that because God created the world and it is good. Any discipline that helps us to understand that world, the truth of reality, is only going to lead us closer to God. Any study that we undertake, whether it's in the sciences or whether it's, in the humanities, is only going to take us closer to truth itself. And so because of that, we don't need to be afraid in our pursuit of truth. And that is such a freeing thing to pick up on your point, Stephen. To go into the world unafraid is an amazing thing in a day and age which seems to be overshadowed by anxiety so much. we don't need to be anxious in our studies. If we're pursuing the truth, and we're pursuing truth in faith and reason, and we're pursuing it in the liberal arts, we can be assured that we will find it. And so that integration, that capacity to see the whole is so comforting, I think, to many students. And to many students to know that they don't need to be afraid is, I think, very comforting to them. And it helps them to make sense of themselves in relation to all of this as well. So they have a stronger sense of themselves, more so than students who are going through a regular sort of progressivist education.
Our church is really good at that. I mean, because when you get into that binary, like, don't think about things, just like accept this truth where you there, you don't want to hear the other side. You have to close your eyes, you close your ears and just say, no, I can't. That's wrong. I can't do it. But with liberal education and with the guidance of our church, who always engages these things, they never say, we're not going to talk about that. That's bad. We don't want to talk about it. It's no, let's talk about why it's bad and where have we gone wrong, and explain it so we can engage in a loving way with people and without. But yeah, you do see a lot of that closing of the ears, or like, don't say those things, or don't talk about this today.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's always been that way. It's always been that way. But
Yeah, yeah, and it's just as we grow up in our cognitive capacities, and too in our just as persons, in our moral capacities as well, we come to see that the Lord is actually calling us to love His world, to love His creation where we're at, and that we can't necessarily close our eyes to it, but that we have to help redeem it. Yeah, we know we live in a fallen world, but we have to help redeem it. And that means we've got to be able to look at it and to engage it in some way. And the church gives us tools to do that. It gives us principles by which to think about, the world around us. And so we can take great confidence that you're not just wandering out in the world alone with no tools and no, and no shield or no sword, but that you are equipped through Catholic liberal arts or classical education to do these things.
Okay, so shifting gears to our college visit aspect of our conversation, Catholic International University. For those who have not yet heard of it, or who may have known it in its earlier iterations, could you give us an overview of the school and some of its defining features?
Sure. So, I mean, we're unusual in that we are a fully online Catholic university. There are lots of Catholic universities that are primarily brick and mortar, but that offer some online classes. We are a university that's all that we do. We were established in the early 80s by Father John Hardin and some of the bishops from the U.S. CCB to take up that call by Vatican II to help train lay people, initially in theology, primarily graduate studies in theology. But over time, we've added more areas of study and the liberal arts at the bachelor's level. We also have our early college program, which allows you to take courses in our bachelor's program. We also have a master's in liberal arts education. So if you wanted to go on and teach liberal arts in a Catholic school, or in a charter school like a Great Hearts Academy or something like that, you would be trained to do that. And so we've been around since the 1980s doing initially distance education. We were the first ones to really begin to adopt the internet when the internet was invented, and to offer online education. So we do it very well. Because it's the only thing that we do. Who would want to do an online bachelor's? Well, that's, that it's a very specific person. A lot of young people, 18 to 22, want an in-person sort of experience. They want to go away. They want to, live at the university, live in the dorms, eat the bad cafeteria food, banter with their their friends in the hallway, whatever. That and there are lots of schools. There are very good schools, Newman Guide schools that offer that sort of experience. We're aimed for students for whom that might not be possible for a variety of reasons. They need or want to stay close to home. They want to be able to work and want the flexibility of an online education to enable them to work more than they would be able to in a traditional school setting. Um, we have a lot of non-traditional students as well. People who are coming back for their degree. They've had some children, they didn't finish their degree, they want to do that. But increasingly, we are seeing 18 to 22-year-olds who want to do things like get a jump start on their career. They want to, work as an apprentice as a plumber, or they want to work as an apprentice in a bakery or something like that. But they also want a liberal arts education. So we are the kind of school that helps that kind of student get a liberal arts education while being able to meet the other needs that life has for them.
Yeah, I like that because I hadn't thought about that work school balance because I was thinking about, okay, well, just looking at your school for one, okay, getting a good Catholic education at a lower price point because
Right.
a lot of those Newman Guide schools are really nice but really expensive too. There's financial aid and such, but and then I also kind of had thought about, okay, well, for a lot of people, the college, if you're not going to a Newman Guide school, you might be thinking of college as a four-year party that
Yeah.
it's an expensive party. But if you're not interested in joining that sort of thing, so but that
Yeah.
this again would be a great way of like, let me just get my good education, but
Yeah.
There might be a sort of thought like, oh, the liberal arts are so like out of touch or not really practical, but this is very practical. Like all of the things you've spoken to so far, and the points you just made about being able to combine the studies of the liberal arts plus apprenticeships in very hands-on or just any sort of industry or whatever. That's
Yeah.
all very practical.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we're finding, that we've got students who are, they need to stay back and help their family business, for instance, but they also want to continue to pursue their education. They have a line of work that they want to go down, but they want that liberal arts education. There are students who aren't really sure what they want to do. They're worried about the cost of going away to a private four-year school, but yet they don't want to go to state U down the road because they know that sort of education can be deforming actually instead of transforming or informing. And so they feel stuck. I don't want to go to state U, but I can't afford or I can't leave to go to this beautiful Newman Guide school down here. So we're not actually competing with other Newman Guide schools for the same group of students. And that's the beautiful thing. We're finding more and more young people who are sensitive to the cost of education. They have there are some young people with a lot of responsibilities and demands on their lives, and they still want to pursue a university degree. Um, we're perfect for that student who, really wants to get a jump on life, wants to get a jump in their career or in their training and pursue a degree at the same time.
It sounds like there's a lot of similarities between Kolbe's online academy and the sort of the scheduling, the structuring of that,
Hmm.
and Catholic International University, the way that is set up. And I'm probably making a lot of assumptions there, but from what I've heard, it sure seems like there are a lot of parallels. And so, speaking to the community aspect, Kolbe works hard to develop community among the students across the miles, and I know that is a priority for you as well at Catholic International University. So how do you all go about that, developing Catholic community?
We have a growing and robust student life program that offers everything from, discussion groups and spiritual direction, even if you want it, um, to, you can pray the rosary together with with your classmates. So we've got all sorts of things that we offer to help support students in their spiritual development and in their personal development. But then within a class, we have a lot of students who, see each other from class to class. So I just finished teaching one in the spring, and it's beautiful. The first few days you have everybody come on and record a little video, so you can see a face and a name, you can hear a voice, and they just talk about, what they're, who they are, what they're looking for in the class. And then they can reply to one another and they're like, oh, great to see you again. It was so great having you in class, last fall. I'm glad you're here, and so they get to know one another. We also have different social media chat things that operate alongside our classes. So students are chatting outside of class about, hey, do you want to form a study group? Or I didn't really understand what Professor Brodeur was saying about X. Can somebody fill me in on this? And so there's this conversation that, is essentially like a chat that's going on, even sometimes in during the week in a class, or even if you're having a synchronous session, they might be chatting with one another as well. It's kind of funny as a professor to go into those chats and you're like, oh wow, they really were paying attention. Okay. Or wow, there were a lot more questions around this. I need to pick that up again next class when we meet because it seems like this is really interesting to them or this is really problematic for them or whatever. So we do a lot to try and build community with students so they feel like they're not alone in pursuing something that they love. The intellectual life should be something done with friends. It should never be done alone in a closet or with a screen, It should be done with friends. And we do everything that we can to promote those friendships amongst students, and, as appropriately as possible between students and professors, to help them, really integrate what it is that they're learning into their persons. That's best done through friendship.
A lot of our students take at least one online class in the midst of their how they are able to customize their Kolbe options. So continuing on in a similar format, what do you think might be some challenges of that would be good to be aware of and address going in?
Right. I think one of the things that we see the most with early college students, so high school students who are taking our courses, or even first-time freshmen, is time management. When you're in a brick and mortar school, you have your schedule set for you, like classes at 8, the cafeteria closes at 9, mass is at this time. It's very scheduled for you, and you just kind of slot into things. In an online sort of setting, you have to take the initiative to introduce order into your life, to grow in the virtue of order. You don't necessarily have those built-in sort of supports in time and space to help you kind of organize your time. So one of the things that we've done through our student life is to talk about how do you create a plan of life? I even do this in some of my classes. When are you going to study? When are you going to work? When are you going to mass? When are you spending time with your friends or your family? And then making a plan and then trying to stick to it. So that's, a challenge that every young person faces. It just comes quicker, I think, in an online environment. And so I think that's one of the biggest challenges, certainly not insurmountable. And that's one of the things that we're trying to address, to come alongside students and help them grow in order, in the virtue of order, so that they can make the most of their online education. The second thing that I would say, challenge-wise, is there's a lot of technologies out there that are tempting to help you do your homework.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, AI, it just has exploded. And, that's something that we take very seriously as an online institution, not just because, we're interested in catching bad guys. I'm not interested in catching you out. What I want for you, student, is to grow in your capacities, so that when you leave this university, you are equipped to, yeah, greet whatever challenge is thrown at you. And if you're using things to help you get by, you're just not as equipped when you leave. And that's bad for you. I don't want that for you. I want you to be as fully developed and robust as you can be when you leave us. And falling to the temptation of an AI just robs that from students. And so we really have to have very frank conversations with our students about these sorts of things.
Those are similar. Both things are similar to our Kolbe students and their experience. Yeah, so I'm glad that you addressed those in that way. But especially, and we talk a lot about AI here as well, just because if the point is just to get a paper out, then that's a pretty efficient way of producing something. So yeah, go for it. But if the goal is learning how to learn and to really engage with these important texts or ideas, then yeah, you've just thrown away an opportunity to actually. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, you've only robbed yourself in the
right,
end.
right.
And that's the thing that I want students to understand. The loser is you. It's the student who loses. And so I know it's tempting. And I remember having a conversation with a parent not too long ago. They were really proud that their student had used AI to help write a speech or something that they had to give. And I was very sad. The parent was like, "Isn't this great? It really, cut down the time little Timmy had to write this speech." I'm like, "No, that's sad actually, because what makes us human is our ability to really wrestle with something, and to wrestle with a text, wrestle with an idea, and express it in a new and vibrant way. And AI can't do that. And so, sometimes even parents fall to the temptation of using the AI or allowing their student to use it for whatever thing, even if it's not for school. And I would say just don't. If you can, don't. Really treasure your human faculties. They are a treasure, they are a gift. And sometimes it's hard to get them to do what you want them to do, but in the end, it's always rewarding.
Yeah. That reminds me of something when you were talking earlier about the liberal education in general and just encountering some of these texts for the first time. I was thinking at that point, I found it very valuable even to just encounter texts that I knew, like some of like St. Thomas's proofs of the existence of God. I read through those. I struggled with them. I talked to my professors about them, and I learned something. But I also learned in doing that probably no matter how often I return to those and how much I study those, I'm probably never going to understand them as well as St. Thomas did or perfectly. I just don't think I have the faculty for that. So it's that doing the AI and getting it done also just yeah, it seems like it gets in the way of that just like wow, there are things out there that are amazing and just should be considered even though I can never actually master it.
It makes me think of Joseph Pieper's Leisure, the Basis of Culture. I think it's chapter 4, where he talks about how technological societies have a tendency to want to reduce people to being mere cogs in an economic machine or in a, social political machine of a sort. And his solution to that, he was thinking about communism right after World War II. How do we resist the Soviet Union? But we can think about it more differently in our own day and age in a technological society, and that wants to reduce us maybe to consumers or wants to, reduce us to some sort of bot or pawn. Um, his solution to that was the liberal arts. How do you get people to reduce reductionism of their capacities of their person? It's the liberal arts, he said, that helps us do that. So this is how we become more human. If you want to join the resistance, study the liberal arts, and reduce the temptation to become a bot or to use AI or whatever. This is going to be the way forward.
I've noticed as we've been getting ready for this episode that your school there's this approach, this prudent use of technology focus that your
Yes.
school has, which I think is very interesting and worth exploring. I'm curious about the Bachelor of Arts in Liberal Studies that you all offer and kind of what that looks like. I know at some schools it is a liberal arts degree and it's a very broad for everyone. At your school, there's that, but you also have areas of career focus. So can you tell us a
Right.
little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, our liberal arts degree is broad. You're going to be studying in theology and philosophy, literature, natural sciences, social sciences, mathematics. You're studying it all. And but then what we're encouraging students to do with their electives that they have left is to pursue a minor. And we'll be adding minors as we add programs. So as we add master's programs, we're going to be adding minors where they can take courses that can bridge them into a master's if they want to go there, or they can just take courses in a particular area. So, for instance, we have a master's in ecclesiastical management. We take some of those courses, we've turned them into a business minor for our undergraduates. So you can do a liberal arts degree with a business minor. We have our master's in liberal arts education. We've taken some of those classes, we've turned them into an undergraduate minor. You can do a liberal arts degree with an education minor. And so a minor is about 6 courses, 18 credits. So you'd be taking 6 courses in business, you'd be taking 6 courses in education or philosophy or theology, or as we add new programs, in prudential use of technologies or economics. As we add these areas of study, we're going to add minors. The idea is that we will never add other majors. We will only add minors because we believe so strongly in the liberal arts as providing the necessary vision to do whatever it is that you want to do in life. So yeah, we've got all of these minor pathways that can help you toward the career that you want.
It's a great introduction as well to some of those master's programs. Like if you think, oh, I'd like to do business, well, here's your opportunity to experiment with that, and maybe you want one after that too. It's a great idea.
Yeah, yeah. We also, want to make sure that students have that really well-rounded, full vision of reality in place. We require that students finish most of their major before beginning to start their minor, because we want them to have, to not get so hyper focused early on. We want to save that towards the end after they've acquired that breadth of vision, before they start thinking about, okay, career, now what?
In our show notes, I will be sure, of course, to link the main school page. And then there's a lot on the site as well about the prudential use of technology, that focus, and about the various programs and so much about that. I'd like to return to your particular background. In the typical progression of a Kolbe High School student, the 11th grade, junior year, is era of Christendom, medieval studies, so forth. So, do you have any tips or hints or things to look forward to that you want to pass along to the students and the homeschooling families embarking upon that year of studies?
Yeah. Oh, wow. Um, I think the thing to look for when you are entering your study of the medieval world is to look for how similar is it to our own world and how is it different. Sometimes I think we tend to over romanticize the medieval world, but they were human just like us. They had families just like us. They had struggles just like us, war, famine, you name it. It was there. So what is similar and what is different? That's how historians tend to look at the world. They look in terms of continuity and change. What's changed? What's remained the same? And then two, what are the true good and beautiful things that we can perhaps bring forward into our own day? We're never going to be able to fully replicate, the medieval world, and we wouldn't want to because that's not what we're asked to do. But we can take things from the past and then things that we find beautiful, that we find moving, and we can bring them into our own world. I study indulgences. That was what I wrote my dissertation on, actually, because I wanted to understand how indulgences help us form community bonds, bonds with the dead, bonds with the living. And it helped me to understand my own community, my
Hmm.
own parish more deeply. So when you are studying the past, ask it to help you appreciate your present and to think about, okay, what can I bring forward into the present that will enrich it and beautify it? So yeah, I love the medieval period.
Was there a particular moment or text, or where does that come? Where was the spark of that? Where do you trace that
Yeah,
to?
yeah. Well, I grew up on a ranch, so there's nothing medieval out in Montana. But I had the opportunity to study at Oxford University my senior year in college, and I thought after I got over the initial sort of culture shock of like coming from, the West into Britain and then into Oxford, which is still a very medieval city, I realized that what I love about the medieval period is what I love about rural communities, and that is the bonds of relationship, a culture that values community. The medieval world had very tight-knit communities. And I, was growing up in a world where those bonds were becoming more and more frayed, looser. What can I do in my own world to build those sorts of bonds, those sorts of communities that were so vibrant in the Middle Ages? What can I do in my own parish? Maybe it's something as silly as starting a movie night, and we're going to watch, I don't know, movies about the medieval period. That builds community, or a book club, or a gardening club, or what can I do to help build bonds of community? That was the thing that drew me to the study of the Middle Ages, but it was out of my own experience and deep love for rural communities, that helped me to fall in love with the Middle Ages. What young people will find as they go forward in the world, in their chosen areas of study, is that the things that they're drawn to and the things that they love come out of their experience in their home, or in their school, or in their community. That nothing is lost. That in your study, it's all going to be brought forward. The Lord is going to give you direction as to where He wants you to go with it. So
That's like a fun sort of not preview, but it's something to put out there to not lose track of. Like, I wonder how this is going to factor into whatever life brings down the road and how that will tie back to. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Is there anything that you wanted to be sure we covered that we haven't gotten to yet?
Um, let's see. A couple of things. It's not only students that are anxious, it's parents that are anxious. I have a 19-year-old who just went off to her first year of college. And I have a 17-year-old who will be going off to college. And it can be a time of anxiety for parents. But I want to encourage parents not to give in to the anxiety, and to trust that your child are in hands that are much more capable than your own. They are in the arms of an everlasting Father. Your child will be fine. Um, they might make some stumbles along the way, but ultimately they will be okay. I think too, the other thing I want to say to young people is don't be anxious. Don't be afraid. There's beauty in the world. There's goodness in the world, and there's hope. The one word that I would like to give both parents and their students is hope. The world might seem really unstable, a lot's changing, but we don't need to be afraid. We can be hopeful that we will be given the inspiration and the tools to live in the world that we've been put by providence to live in. So I think it's the other word that I would like to leave families with.
Interesting. You mentioned Father Hardin as one of your founders of your school, and I was just reading an article by him today, and kind of in preparation for the Feast of St. Ignatius of Loyola coming up next week.
Yeah,
But he was about discernment, and that, like, are we doing are we listening to what we want to do, what God wants us to do, or the devil wants us to do? And I think as it just fits in with what you just mentioned, because if you're prayerfully considering both the child and the parent, what's best for this? What does God want for this student? Then once you make that choice, then you trust you can trust you can let go of that anxiety, because if this is what God wants them to do, he's going to take care of all of those things. There's no reason to be anxious.
that's right. We can live with a lot of hope and a lot of joy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, that's the motto of our university, is joy in the truth. And so I think we can move forward in our studies with a lot of confidence and a lot of joy, knowing that all will be well and it will be brought forward to the good.
Well, and continuing on with speaking to the parents as well as the students, I know we've spent a lot of time talking about the experience of someone continuing on straight from high school or even, within a few years of it. It seems like this school offers a lot to parents, perhaps who are finishing their homeschooling chapter. And as you
Yeah,
mentioned, who might be returning to finish degrees or who might have discovered um, a love of they might not have had this classical liberal arts
yeah,
foundation and they might want to continue in it. I can see a lot of opportunities there for
yes.
students at your school for the parents.
Yeah, that's a really excellent point. Parents who homeschool have a vision for wanting to serve the church, as she wants to be served. And there are a lot of needs in the church right now. We offer masters in theology for folks who want to study theology. We have masters in theology and catechetical ministry for folks who might think, okay, maybe I want to work in education in a parish as a DRE or as a youth minister. Maybe I found out through homeschooling that I really love teaching and I want to be able to make that a more professional sort of role. Well, you can do a master's in liberal arts education and take that love of teaching into the schools. And I'll also say, as I travel around the United States and I talk to school leaders and I talk to superintendents, there is a deep need for well-formed teachers and school leaders. And so, if you are feeling that you were really enriched by your homeschooling experience and you want to do more with it, there's a need for you. There's a demand for you in Catholic education in particular. So too, if you want to serve the church, as a pastoral administrator, the master's in ecclesiastical management, and then we're adding more programs all the time to help dioceses and to help schools and churches, parishes um, think about how to serve the world that they've been put in, and the people that are in their communities.
Hopefully get some wheels turning, or at least those wheels are probably already
Yes.
turning, and this now we know where to steer them. So that is
Yeah,
helpful
yeah,
to hear
that's
all that.
right.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So on the Kolbe website, there is a page detailing the opportunities Kolbe students have to take dual enrollment courses through Catholic International University. There's also a page on your website specific to Kolbe students. So we'll be linking our show notes as usual, as I usually say. Our show notes are going to have a whole lot of good stuff, including links to these particular things and relevant Kolbecast episodes as well that relate to the conversation we've had today. Are there any final thoughts or takeaways you want to leave with us, in addition to the good stuff you've given us so far?
Yeah, yeah, no, we would love to have you. We know that a lot of folks, a lot of young people might be headed off to a traditional brick and mortar school, but there are a lot that aren't. And then there are a lot of adults who aren't in a position to just move up, pick up sticks and go study somewhere. We're here for that person, that student, and we are teaching from the heart of the church. Ex Cordia Ecclesiae is our backbone. And we firmly believe in joy in the truth, so that whatever you study with us will bring you closer to the truth, to Christ, who is Christ, and will bring you great joy.
I really enjoyed hearing about, well, the conversation as a whole, but
Yes.
also hearing about the school just as you know, 'cause we need good Catholic schools. And just like I always think of different religious orders, like just because there were the Franciscans didn't mean there wasn't a need for the Dominicans. So there's a need for all of these different, and I'm glad that you're there to fill it. It sounds wonderful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the world is changing. It's changing dramatically. It's changing quickly. And in every age, I don't know if you've ever read Christopher Dawson. He's a Catholic historian of the 20th century, but he's written a lot about how do we understand change in culture. And we're in a period of dramatic change, which also means we're in a period of dramatic creativity in the church. We always see this. We saw this in the Middle Ages. We've seen it in different ages of the church in the past, that anytime you see a lot of change, you see a lot of creativity. And so that is another reason to have hope, because we're always continually inspired by the Holy Spirit to help redeem the world, And we're going to be given the inspiration for how specifically to do that. So we're in an age of tremendous change, but we are not alone. And that means that, places like Catholic International might become more important as institutions shift and change in higher ed, as education shifts and changes. Kolbe Academy might become more important for Catholic education. We just don't know, but we're open to it all. We're open to the inspirations as they come, so that we can move forward with great hope.
I've really enjoyed our conversation today, Dr. Brodeur, and I thank you so much for coming to visit with us. I'd love to visit with you again. We'll have to have you back to talk delve more deeply into medieval things and so forth. We appreciate this time with you. Thank you so much for coming to visit with us.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks so much. Take care.
Subscribe to the Kolbe Cast on your favorite podcast app so that you don't miss an episode. And let us know how we're doing by leaving a rating or a review. And as always, feel free to email us at podcast@kolbe.org.
Mary, our Mother, pray for us. St. Maximilian Kolbe, St. Ignatius of Loyola, holy saints and angels, pray for us. Ad Maiorem Dei Gloriam.